Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Senate Standing Committee on Education, our 9th meeting of this session. I do call this meeting to order. Any members that are in the audience, as well as those members on the committee, if you have a cell phone, we please just kindly ask that you turn that to silence or also to vibrate. Audience members who wish to speak on a bill need to sign in on the sign-in sheet that's at the door. Additional testimonies at the discretion of the chair based on time constraints and information already presented. And also we ask, like in all of our committees, that no signs be permitted in the committee rooms. Mariah, if you would, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Here.
Senator Givens.
Here.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon.
Here.
Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith.
Here.
Senator Neal. Senator Southworth. Senator Stivers.
Here.
Senator Thomas. Senator Wilson.
Here.
Vice Chair West.
Here.
Chair Wise.
Present. We do have a quorum. We're duly constituted to do business today. Senator Higdon has a guest. I'm going to go ahead and let him announce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have in the back of the room James Newman. Where'd you go, James? There he is. James, I served with him on the Kentucky Grocers Board of Directors, and I was in the grocery business for years, and James is still in the grocery business. He and his family own the Value Markets in Louisville. So welcome to the Frankfort, James. Glad to have you here.
Senator Thomas, you have a guest?
Yes, I had several Fayette County teachers come visit me this morning, and they said they would attend the Education Committee meeting as well. They are Leslie Davis, Stacy Jefferson, Robbie Biddle, Jessica Rose, and Shane Green. There are some of them now, so
wonderful.
They're waving. I'm glad they're here and seeing the Senate Education Committee, and thank you for your service as teachers.
Welcome to the Education Committee. Thanks for what you do in the classroom. Senator Givens.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I am honored today to be joined by a special person. Madely Doty, would you stand up? Madely's paging for me today. She's a rock star, 7th grader at Simpson County, and I'm thrilled and honored that she brought her mom and dad along to assist as she's paging for me today. Please, if we could make her welcome.
Thank you for being here, and your parents as well. Any other member? Senator Denise Harper Angel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to have members of the JCTA here today communicating with legislators, and I'd like the committee to make them feel welcome this morning. And they can stand or wave or say hey.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Star-studded day here. Any other members? Any guests? Seeing none, I'm going to get right to today's orders. I'm going to skip around and go a little bit out of turn with the bills, but I'm going to first give the first bill to the Madam Chair of the House Education Committee. And we're going to go first with House Bill 121, an act relating to local school board meetings. The sponsor is State Representative Regina Huff, my colleague in the House. Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share House Bill 121 with you today. This bill came about with the conversation between my policy analyst and myself and some of the correspondence we were receiving from parents. And this is no way relevant to our largest school district. It turns out that there was a lot of parents, and it wasn't a rural-urban divide. It was just a consensus. This was a problem with parents not being able to have a voice within school board meetings. And I'll share just briefly one little story for you that really, she called about regarding the mask mandate, but I think that her story lends itself to the reason we need this meeting. I was very impressed with this young lady. She was very diplomatic in her search to find answers and her opportunity to speak to her board. She first went through the chain of command. She asked her teachers if they had heard anything regarding the mask mandate or anything about the release of that. And the teacher shared no, that she had not heard anything, but if she could stop at the principal's office and maybe he might have some information for her. So she did so, and she said the principal was understanding and said, that he thought that, it was time as well, but she would have to speak to the superintendent because that was a call from the central office. So she made an appointment, and she and her husband both took off work. They were so passionate about this issue, and they went to visit with the superintendent. And he told them that this was a board issue and that, the board would make those decisions. And she said, and this was his exact quote to me, she said, well, we would like to speak to the board. And he said, you don't need to bother them with this. I will talk to them about it and get back to you. So in the meantime, the district that she shares, that shares a city and county with their district, lifted the mask mandate. So she said she waited until the next board meeting, and she called him back, and he said, well, we're just going to leave them on for a while. So she went out in her community and amassed 200 signatures. She ensured that they were all from adult individuals, and she went to the next board meeting and asked if she could share these signatures with the board members, and if they would be able to, just address this issue. And she said the young lady was very nice that took her signature sheet, and she came back and she said, the superintendent says that you can't address them, but that he will share the signatures with the board and get back to you. So she wrote her number down, and she said she waited 3 days, giving him the opportunity to respond, and he didn't. So she called him, and he said, well, we're just entrenched in this issue. So she gathered some of her friends and parents that were like-minded with her and tried to figure out what they could do next to ensure that their children were released from wearing these masks. So a teacher came that happened to teach in their district, and she just said, I'm just, I don't want to be causing a problem, but I'm just telling you that until the governor makes the decision, then we will be wearing masks, or if the legislature changes the law and decides to remove mandates from masks. So that's when she reached out, and she just said, we don't know what else to do. But she said, I just want the opportunity to stand before the board. And she said, just ask the question. Give me justification why that another district in our area are going to school maskless. And she said, I'm not someone that wants attention. She said, but my daughter is suffering. She said she has mask acne, and she said she's always been so bubbly. And she said it's really, really having an adverse effect on her whole entire life, her social and emotional well-being. So I want to preface this by saying that some boards do an extremely exceptional job with this. They stream their board meetings, and they ask for public input. So to go further with the issue, I just randomly selected 5 board members geographically from across the state, and just iMessaged them on iMessage, just ask if they would talk candidly to me for a moment. And I was really surprised how open they were to this concept, and I didn't ask if they had the opportunity for the public to speak. I just said, I want to know your thoughts on this matter. And one lady, she said, I'm glad you called me. She said, I would much rather address someone collectively as a board than when someone stops me at the local Walmart. She said, because I get really defensive, I'm nervous, I'm afraid they're recording me. She said, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be proactive in the board stands on things. And she said, it's concerning. So, and there was three different ones that said, they would rather address the public collectively. So I don't think, these are public school boards, and I think that it's important that we give the public the opportunity to have some input. And it's a one-line
Thank you.
bill.
Thank you, Representative Hub. Before I get into questions, I do have one person that is signed up to speak on the bill, and if I could allow that person who is signed in to make their way
Yes,
to the tables,
certainly.
Mr. Rob Matthew. Mr. Matthew, welcome to the Education Committee.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. If there's a green light on, you're free
All
to
right.
speak, and you have the floor.
Hi, my name is Rob Matthew, and I am a former JCPS parent and current member of the JCPS Policy Committee. But today I'm here speaking on my own behalf as a parent. I'm asking that you reject Senate Bill 121 in its current format and make changes before sending it forward. I 100% public comment and transparency and feel no legislative body is lesser for it. As a JCPS parent, I made myself an annoyance 3 minutes at a time at numerous board meetings, from the first one I attended in 2010 to the last one in 2020, the year my daughter graduated. It is one of the few places where a person can easily participate in the democratic process, get heard by a body of people who do, in spite of what some of you may think, usually have the best interest of our kids at heart. JCPS has always had an inclusive policy for commenting and been far more welcoming to public comment and interaction than many in this body. On numerous occasions, meetings went 3 to 4 hours because of their generous allowance of public feedback on topics. In 10 years of attending JCPS board meetings, I can only think of 1 or 2 minor disruptions that required intervention. Both were handled civilly, and the meeting continued without interruption once it was dealt with. Sadly, that all changed when people like the local head of the American Family Association and others started stirring up irrational and factually challenged anger on topics like CRT, masks, and vaccine mandates. I myself was almost shouted down at a meeting last summer in Oldham County, where I grew up and graduated. And in Jefferson County, we had a gentleman arrested for allegedly threatening our superintendent with a gun. And since everything's awful, that guy is now running for school board. While I firmly believe school boards should have generous comment policies and support those, I can't get over the very real fears that my local school board members have expressed in our policy meetings, that one day an angry member of the public is going to resort to violence instead of angry words. Additionally, while I support mandatory comment periods, I think the General Assembly shouldn't pass one without creating one for itself and other bodies as well. It seems hypocritical to require school boards to face public comment during their meetings, but not expect the same of other legislative bodies. Just yesterday, the sponsor of this bill refused to allow comment on an education bill because it had been spoken about at previous meetings. That's something I've never experienced in 10 years of JCPS meetings. Everyone got to speak. If you can't handle the heat in the most important legislative body in the state, why are you mandating what legislative bodies below you do? Even if you don't extend these rules to yourself and elsewhere, for the interest of public safety, this bill must have provisions that allow the board to set up rules for orderly comment periods, allow sign-up requirements like the one here, and add provisions to allow the chair to call an end to public comment if they fear public safety is at risk. So I ask for those changes, but I do support a public comment period for everything. So thank you for allowing me the time to speak.
Thank you for your comments. Representative Huff, if I could have you come back to the table.
Yes, please.
We do have some members that have signed up for some questions or comments. I'll go first in the order. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Huff. I don't see. I've witnessed a number of board meetings, and I'm not used to a board meeting where a board doesn't allow comment. So I'm not familiar that there are boards that don't allow that. That's different for me. So I'm assuming that this is consistent with what I've experienced generally. But I do have a question here, because although the vast majority, I'd say 99% of the board meetings that I've observed, either virtually or the ones that I've attended, there's been decorum, there's been free flow of information, as was just testified. There was adequate time and additional time given in many situations. But sometimes somebody comes in there and they are not a credit to a role model for their children, and they just go off and go crazy and do not follow the decorum or the directions of the chair and so forth. I find that unacceptable. This doesn't trump that, does it?
Thank you for that question. I think that what you said prior to all the divisive issues that have gone on in education, there was more of an open decorum. But I also think that what I've found in discussing this issue with superintendents, and I always do reach out to those that this affects. I think the superintendents, feel like they are to protect their board from being harassed on the decisions that they make. So they have tried to set up parameters, and I think that's what I'm trying to just deter from setting up. I think that most boards, and I've talked to a lot that have their resource officers, school resource officers attend their board meetings, and there they have a built-in security. No one's expecting a board to sit and listen to someone that is, being berating or rude or crude or threatening. But I think that we need to make sure that our public school systems have public input, and I don't think 15 minutes and is too much to ask. And also, some boards that are already doing this have said, we allow for, when someone signs up, we allow for this amount of time, and if someone else is there, we explain, that you'll be first next board meeting, and no one has had any problems. So I think it's important that we just ensure, regardless, we have the SROs that are there to protect our children every day, and they're just there to make sure that a decorum that you suggested should be handled right.
Mr. Chairman,
Please
I just want to make sure, and I'm sure it's my deficiency that I'm still unclear on this. Anyone who comes in to speak is expected to comply with the board's decorum. That's otherwise they take the necessary steps or the reasonable steps to deal with that. You're in agreement with that?
Absolutely.
And this would not trump that.
No,
in any way.
They're afforded the opportunity to speak. Certainly, if there's a problem or a safety issue, then they, just as anyone would be.
Well, ugliness is not what we want to have in board
No.
meetings, just like we don't tolerate it in our committee meetings here,
Absolutely.
as you're well aware.
And if I could speak to the gentleman's issue yesterday, we had 2 meetings. We had the same people signed up to speak yesterday that had spoke to our House Education Committee and our Senate Education Committee. And I also limited and requested the members to speak only to the directive that we had been given yesterday, nothing before. And so, I was consistent with, we'd already discussed this 2 separate times in detail. I did not hold back anyone from speaking. Everyone was given the opportunity at length and at their length. So as members were suggested that they stick with the topic and what the parameters were for yesterday's vote, I asked that those that were signed up to speak that had already had 2 opportunities, that in order for time constraints and other meetings that were going on, that was the purpose in yesterday's decision.
So you'll welcome an amendment to that effect of what I'm speaking
Oh,
about?
absolutely. That would be fine, just to make sure that they are, as long as they, handle themselves appropriately. That would be, certainly.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Senator Thomas?
Actually, Representative Huff, it's good to see you again.
Well, you as well.
Address my question, because it was unusual that I received 2. I was approached by 2 different Louisville representatives, colleagues of yours in the House and mine too, about that very issue the gentleman raised, about cutting off debate in House education hearings. But you've addressed that already, so there's no need for me to plow that ground again.
Yes, and I made sure that I was consistent in my in the objective to, according to the time constraints, and we had already and respectfully listened, and I appreciate those that did come and share, and quite frankly, those that I spoke to yesterday that were a part of that activity yesterday and that were here to speak, they said, I truly understand. We've had this opportunity 2 different times. So I was appreciative of their respect, and I respected them being here, and always respect input. You don't have to agree with me, but we can respectfully agree to disagree.
Thank you. Senator West?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairwoman Huff, for bringing this bill. I think it's a good bill, and this is an easy vote. I'd like to point out, I think the reason you're here with this bill is we've had a diversion from the way things have always been handled in the past in Kentucky. I don't know of any school board ever that restricted public comment or allowed for no public comment. And so you're just reacting to what's gone on out there. Like I say, this is not a difficult thing. This to me, this is just a basic floor. 15 minutes, that's not a huge mandate on districts to do that. And it's just a floor, and you can go above that, allow for an hour of public comment, depending on the meeting, depending on the subject matter of the meeting. And we talk about mass mandates. This isn't just for mass mandates. There's a plethora of issues that come before the boards, and this is good public policy, public comment, transparency, and And I think it's rich that we've been accused of, a person has, through public comment, accused us of not allowing public comment. Every committee I'm on up here allows ample opportunity for public comment, especially this committee. So thank you for bringing the bill, and I'll gladly vote yes.
Thank you, Senator. And to your point, I had another gentleman, when I filed the bill, wrote me. He had moved here and had a refrigerant company. And so he had wanted to present the opportunity to kind of grow your own. He couldn't find workers to work in his company, and wanted to present to a school board to maybe do a co-op and apprenticeship, and he wasn't allowed that opportunity. So he shared that with me as well. So that was something that was positive. You know, I don't understand the purpose, but I just think it's just good public policy, as you said, that we allow the public input. And I'm always welcome, and anyone's always welcome to speak in my committee. I do not shut down anyone, but they had 2 different opportunities, and we were trying to move on.
Senator Southworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for addressing this issue, because it certainly is an issue. I'm one of those districts that just chopped public comments entirely out of their meetings and kind of raised a lot of trouble in the local community for a while. It was in the newspaper almost weekly about the fact they didn't have their meetings. But I really am looking at the wording here, and I probably need to talk to the staff, but I want to get your intent here so I know, because I think we have a drafting error on one item, and the other item I have a question. Are you trying to set a floor or a ceiling of 15 minutes?
No, it's simply a floor. They can go on, but they have to have 15 minutes. And I also want to address the fact that we also made sure that should no one be signed up to speak, that they can go ahead and adjourn. Some had concerns that they would have to await 15-minute arrival of someone, so we addressed that issue as well.
Okay, so the other question I have is each regular meeting, it says. So are you not normally having special called meetings that need public comment periods, or are we intentionally trying to not have them cover special meetings? Because sometimes there's a lot of special meetings. I'm just trying to figure out if there's an intent behind that.
No, we did regular meetings because sometimes a special meeting can be called, and we didn't want to make it look like that that the school boards were intentional in their special meetings and have them, hold off addressing an issue that they needed to address quickly without having something in the newspaper or something on social media to address that they were meeting. We didn't want to control that aspect of their meeting. What we did want to do is make sure that at each regular meeting that they would have public input.
Okay, thank you.
Last question I see is from Senator Carroll.
Just quickly, Mr. Chairman and Chairwoman Huff, thank you for bringing this bill. Yesterday, the Senate passed Senate Concurrent Resolution 73 on behalf of the School Administrators Association, calling for a return to civility in the education arena. And I think this bill is another effort to restore that within education. And folks, as a Commonwealth, it's time we take a look at ourselves and where we're headed. And it's time to be heard again. And as I stated on the floor yesterday, to be heard, you first have to be heard. And without civility within that arena, especially when our kids are watching, of all arenas that we are concerned about, education for this issue has to take the priority. And we have to be respectful in that when we are dealing with a policy regarding our children, we have to work together and we have to be heard. Screaming, yelling, fighting is not going to accomplish that. We must return to civility. And Chairwoman Huff, it is my hope that you will pick up that resolution. It's a concurrent resolution in the House, so we may get that passed and stand together as a legislative body in supporting the return to civility within the education arena. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Carroll. Thank you for your work on that as well. Do we have a motion? House Bill 121. We have a motion. Senator Wilson, do I have a second? Second from Senator West. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I'm going to pass today, and I'm going to look forward to seeing the amendment that Senator Neal was referring to, because I think there needs to be some more clarification. So I passed today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal.
If I could explain my vote.
Please proceed.
I'm going to vote aye with the understanding that you're going to support the clarification that Senator Harper Angel was speaking of and that you alluded you would have no objection to.
Certainly, thank you.
Senator Southworth.
So I'm going to vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I'm going to vote yes also in hopefully work on an amendment to clean this up because I agree with the intent of setting a floor of 15 minutes. My concern is when it says here a public comment period of at least 15 minutes or until comments end, whichever occurs first, which means the definition of at least confuses with whichever occurs first, and it could turn into a ceiling of 15 minutes. And I don't want that. And I don't think that that's the intent, and therefore I think we get this cleaned up and it'll be good. Thank you.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my aye vote.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, in some ways, this is a very easy vote. I believe that everybody should have their voice heard. As this body well knows, I've been a strong advocate of even allowing young people's voice to be heard. I think we should have young people on school boards and have them play a role in decisions that affect themselves. So I'm all for having people's voices heard. I have to say, I didn't say this yesterday, but I have to say that I strongly concur in what the Senator from Marshall is doing. What we've seen across this country in this landscape this year and last year with the angriness, the violence, the hostility that people displayed at these board meetings, it's just gotten out of control. And yes, people should have their voice heard, but they should do it in a civil tone. Senator Marshall is absolutely right. So I support your effort, Representative Huff. But I would say that that should apply even when people say things that we don't agree with. That we should tolerate disagreement because that's healthy for America. That's what freedom is all about. Having disparate and dissenting viewpoints on all sides. But having said all that, Mr. Chair, I do vote aye.
Senator West.
Aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Chair Wise.
Aye. That is 10 aye votes and 1 pass vote. Chairwoman Huff, thank you for the bill. And I would kindly ask, with me allowing you to go first, if there's any Senate bills that may be over in your committee.
Have you ever? Duly noted.
Thank you. I do want to say I don't know any other bills, and you may have those coming my way, but this is your last session, and your role and your leadership with House Education, I just want to publicly commend you. Thank you for your public service and working with you and all the time we've been together. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. It's been a true pleasure.
The next bill I'll hear is Senate Bill 163, an act relating to student financial aid. The sponsor is Senator Brandon Storm. Senator Storm, welcome to the Education Committee. I know you have a couple of guests with you. I'll let you first identify yourself, and then if you're...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Brandon Storm, Senator of the 21st District, and I'll let my guests introduce themselves.
I'm Kate Shanks, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the Kentucky Chamber.
Erin Clare, Vice President of Government Relations for the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority and Kentucky Higher Education Student Loan Corporation.
Thank you very much. Senator Storm, we do have a committee sub. If I can move on that first before we get into the discussion. Do we have a motion? Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting the committee sub, do so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Senator Storm.
Thank you. Very briefly, this Senate Bill 163 is an act relating to student financial aid, and it will amend KRS 164.740 to delete the definition of penal institutions. It'll also amend KRS 164.7874 to delete the requirement of an eligible high school student and eligible post-secondary student not being a convicted felon for KEYS eligibility purposes. And I'll let my colleagues explain the the necessity of this bill.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to speak in support of this legislation. Not surprisingly, I'm here to talk about workforce challenges, and this is the one issue as we travel the state and we talk to business leaders that we consistently hear about from different businesses, different sectors of the economy, as well as corners of Kentucky. It is a big issue and a big challenge for us. We published a report last year that we have shared. You all have seen it. We have presented on it. Kentucky's workforce crisis, 20 years in the making, that laid out the challenges that we face with workforce. We specifically look at what's causing our workforce challenges, as well as recommendations that we have for going forward on how to address those. And one of the areas that we really focused on in this report is post-secondary attainment. Kentucky trails the national average when it comes to post-secondary attainment. When you look at Kentuckians ages 25 to 64, about 49% have some level of post-secondary attainment. So we're talking about some sort of accreditation or credentialing. This is compared to the national rate of about 52%. We believe that we can close this gap, and we need to close this gap because it's estimated that around 65 to 85% of jobs today require some level of post-secondary education, credentialing, or certification, something beyond high school or GED. Senate Bill 163 expands eligibility for those who can access state financial aid and how that money can be used. And there's a couple of things in the bill that brings us to the table. The first one, as Senator Storm mentioned, deals with the felony prohibition for using the KEYS dollars, as well as the restrictions on the use for those that are incarcerated. As the Chamber works on criminal justice issues, we are always thinking about reentry and workforce. We have many employers that will hire people who are formerly incarcerated, as well as people who struggle with substance use disorders. And we have worked in this space for several years now, specifically on the policy side and bringing legislation and discussing legislation, as well as on the programmatic side through our Kentucky Chamber Foundation and providing programs through employers to help connect people who are formerly incarcerated with employers and with jobs. And so our interest in this is, of course, about workforce and getting people back to work, dealing with our workforce challenges, as well as dealing with recidivism rates and how having a job can have an impact on that. And then the bill also allows for funds to be used at proprietary schools for programs that fall within one of Kentucky's top 5 high-demand sectors. When you think about Kentucky's economy, you think about manufacturing, you think about agriculture, you think about the fact that we are a logistics hub for the nation and really the world, and you can imagine the jobs that those industries and those sectors require. You can think about trucking and welding, of course, our healthcare sector and how we need so many different people working in that field. And so I think expanding the eligibility into these proprietary schools for these top 5 high-demand sectors is important in providing the workforce for the economy that we have. So essentially, we see this as a benefit to tackling our workforce challenges. We have been talking about the fact that we need a multifaceted approach to our workforce challenges, and this is one of the many bills that we're working on this session related to that, and so we respectfully request your support of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that I absolutely love the Senate budget. You all did a great job. It's almost perfect, but I would not be here today if we did not have the funds available to expand KEYS in the manner that this committee substitute proposes. So if you are not familiar with KEYA, we were created by the General Assembly in 1966 following the passage of the Federal Higher Education Act. Our mission is to remove barriers to post-secondary education, period. The most significant of those are financial. The second most significant of that is informational. We do that by administering the state student financial aid programs, as well as offering low-cost student loans and managing the state 529 Educational Savings Plan Trust. The most important scholarship we have, though, is the College Access Program, or CAP, which is the federal Pell Grant match based on financial need as determined by the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA. KIA is the repository for all Kentucky FAFSAs. We also administer the Kentucky Tuition Grant, or KTG. We also administer the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. We also administered the Dual Credit Scholarship. So it used to be that we had the big three, Keys, CAP, KTG. Now I would say we have the big five. So the broader statute that is repealed in this legislation would allow us to administer aid, student financial aid, to those that are incarcerated. Honestly, Keys may not be the biggest impact. It's probably more CAP and the Work Ready Scholarship. So I'm happy to talk through any of the technical questions. We can go section by section, or you can give me some pop trivia. I'm always happy to answer the questions, and if I don't know, I will find out the answer.
Since we have other bills on the docket, let's not get into pop trivia
Okay.
questions. But we do have some questions from members. Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just got a quick question to clarify something that I heard as the bill was moving forward, and this may have been a previous version, but I'd heard that there was provision that the Keys money was only available upon graduation, but I don't see that in the language. Is that not the case in this bill?
So there's three different sections to the committee substitute. The first has to do with the incarcerated population. Yep. The second has to do with the proprietary schools in the top 5 workforce needed areas. And the third has to do with some military issues. So the military portion of the bill, we have situations where, for example, somebody may be stationed at Fort Knox for freshman, sophomore year, have attended a Kentucky high school, but then their parents have been transferred elsewhere. The proposal is that those dollars that they have earned in high school, there would be an exception only because of a military transfer for them to then come back to Kentucky and spend them at a Kentucky institution.
Yeah, that's, as I see it, it'll work like other Keys monies. If you're in there year one, they'll immediately have access. In the proprietary school situation, they'll immediately have access for that year. Is that how you read it?
The proprietary section, we are modeling off of legislation that we passed prior to the pandemic. So I know a lot of people may not remember it, but it was geared toward registered apprenticeships and the proprietary schools that already had articulated credit agreements with Keys participating institutions. So it is a reimbursement basis, basically. So the proprietary school, the student will have to attend and submit receipts to us, and then we will reimburse them a check up to their earned Keys amount.
But it's not upon graduation. It's like during that year they can give Keys receipts and receive those funds in that same year.
It would be after high school graduation.
Gotcha. You answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. It's complicated, guys.
No, I get it. I'm good.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is more of a statement as opposed to a question. I just witnessed the second of two very common sense pieces of legislation today, one in judiciary and now this, and I just want to congratulate you and thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having a struggle with this bill as it deals with those convicted of felons. As I read it, someone convicted of a violent offense, someone convicted of child molestation, any number of felonies could be eligible for this money. Is that correct?
That is true. I mean, it's repealing. It's not.
Why in the world would we want to spend tax dollars to educate someone that sexually abuses a child?
I will say two things. Part of this is very old thought, and it actually dates back to the 1994 crime bill that passed at the federal level. So the Pell Grant used to be available for incarcerated individuals, and that was removed. studies have been done that the people that probably would have benefited the most from educational opportunities were low-income minorities, male, with low-level felony drug convictions. At the time, late 90s, early 2000s, it would be marijuana. I would say probably these days, a lot of the people that would benefit and we would want to target would be folks that have been affected by the opioid epidemic as well. Now, the violent offenders, I mean, they are still going to have to be admitted to a post-secondary education program. So whatever criteria that those degree programs have, sometimes depending on, what it is, it would be a criminal background check, credit check, whatever the background is, as well as the U.S. Department of Education has recently completed negotiated rulemaking to expand something called the Second Chance Pell Project. They just completed that in December. They are supposed to publish a rule in the Federal Register like any day now, and then the public can comment on their proposed rules. And what they are trying to put the guardrails on is what types of institutions will be allowed to offer instruction inside their correctional facilities, as well as, they're going to have to work with the Department of Corrections in whatever jurisdiction as to whether or not those inmates I would imagine it would be treated like a privilege if they were allowed to attend classes or have those resources.
I very much appreciate the very detailed answer, and without restrictions on certain crimes, there's no way I could support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Givens.
Mr. Chairman, quick comment. Thank you for the legislation, Senator Storm. I appreciate your work on this. I appreciate the cabinet. I'm sorry, not the cabinet, but the chamber. The chamber and the workforce element of this conversation, but I specifically want to address something, Ms. Claire, that you've said, because I think you said it very, very delicately, very appropriately, but I think we need to echo it to all members, in my opinion, and that is the targeted, affordable expansion of this endeavor. We have lots and lots of keys bills that move through these chambers on a regular basis, and I appreciate you coming to the table in support of this one. I'm confident you would support all of them given the funding to be able to afford them. As you clearly indicated, you very proudly support this one because it's an affordable expansion within the scope of what you've been provided financially by the General Assembly. So thank you for the legislation, Senator Storm.
Thank you, Senator Givens. Senator Southworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to publicly thank Senator Storm for bringing this legislation because I was really excited to see another version of it last year because I thought, yeah, let's do this. But now I'm actually much more excited about this one in two key reasons. One is Section 5 repeals a statute, and we don't get to vote on that very often. We talk about it all the time, that we need to get laws off the books instead of adding laws on the books. This is one of those rare gems we get to do that. So that's my first exciting part. My second exciting part is just what this really means. We're looking at words on a page, but what this means is that if somebody has gone to a juvenile facility, for example, the likelihood of them actually succeeding in life is getting to be lower and lower when they get that far down the tracks. And we're paying for all of these other services, but then we're sitting here and kind of have a brick wall for them to be able to do what I think this committee usually believes is the number one issue is get yourself into education and get out of poverty, all those type of things. And what this also means for the 18-year-olds who are sitting in adult prison that have done the same thing, hung out with bad friends, and they end up sitting there now. What happens is, okay, well, I'll give you a good example. A friend of mine, when we were 19, that's the last time I've seen him. And he's now my age and looking forward to getting out, but he's spent now 15 years without being able to get an education. So imagine he's up for a parole next month. Imagine 33, almost 34 years old, and he does not have any post-secondary credential. How is he going to get this job? How is he going to move into this? Sentences aren't all life sentences. We have to remember, Class D felonies are only 5 years max. Class C, 10 years. Class B, 20, Let's go down the list. we have to have a plan for when these people get out. And we've got work programs going on in prison, and yet the people that take those work programs aren't eligible to work in the jobs when they get out. So this fills that gap. We're paying for them to be in prison. We might as well pay for the schooling so that when they get out, we don't have to pay for them again. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, do we have a motion on the bill? We have a motion from Senator Neal. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second for Senator Givens. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
I'd like to explain my no vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I do appreciate the efforts, and in most crimes, most offenses, I agree with you 100%. And all of the purpose of this is valid, but I believe there's just a line on certain crimes we just don't cross. And I'll believe that until the day I die. Maybe it's because of my background of having to deal with some of these folks and speaking with them and interview their victims and the scars that never go away. And they have to live with that for the rest of their lives. Their families have to live with that, and their tax dollars are going to pay for an education for these folks. I sometimes I'm lost in Frankfurt with some of the things that we do and what we've become. What we've become as a Republican Party, this is not what I signed up for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator West. Senator Wilson. Chair Wise.
Aye. By a vote of 10 aye votes and 1 nay vote, Senate Bill 163 passes. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Oh, Senator Meredith, my apologies. I didn't see you there.
Well, my apologies, sir. I have had to testify on another bill, but I'd like to be recorded voting aye on this bill.
That will be 11 aye votes. Thank you very much, sir. Do you want to record a vote on House Bill 121 or wait until later to give you more time?
I prefer to wait.
Okay, no problem. Next bill on the agenda as I'm going through here is House Bill 194, an act relating to alternative education. The bill sponsor is Representative D.J. Johnson. Representative Johnson, welcome to the Senate Education Committee. And I know you do have someone that is online that is with you on Zoom. First, I'll let you identify yourself for the record, and then if your guest can identify himself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. D.J. Johnson, representative for the 13th District, Owensboro-Davis County. And I am joined remotely today by Mr. Jeremy Cameron. Mr. Cameron, Principal Cameron, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Cameron, the principal in Davis County of Owensboro Day Treatment.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would mention also that Principal Cameron is not only here to testify today, but he is also the individual that brought this issue to my attention. So I want to thank him for doing so and giving us the opportunity to pass a good bill today. So, Mr. Chairman, House Bill 194 addresses a situation concerning GED opportunities for students attending alternative schools. Mr. Chairman, by passing House Bill 194 into law, the General Assembly will provide educators an additional tool that will contribute to the success of students enrolled in our alternative schools. I would like to start off by saying that the Kentucky Association of School Administrators, the Kentucky Association of School Superintendents, and the Kentucky School Boards Association all endorse 194. If I may briefly provide some background information, there are approximately 23,000 students enrolled in alternative programs in Kentucky, representing about 3% of our student population statewide. The vast majority of these students are making suitable academic progress, but for that small number who are not, other options need to be available. House Bill 194 provides an additional opportunity to that limited pool of students who may see themselves at a dead end. Students in alternative programs who are at least 17 years old and who have insufficient high school credits to graduate within a reasonable time period often resign themselves to failure and simply become another dropout statistic. Basically, they look at their situation and say, why bother? But by allowing these students to obtain a GED, they can go from being dropouts into students who can continue their post-secondary education, learn a trade, and get a good paying job, or perhaps join the military. As recently as 2012, Kentucky had a secondary GED pathway available to all high school students who were significantly below grade level. With the advent of an emphasis on high school graduation rates and raising the dropout age to 18, that path was discontinued. Later, in 2017, the previous chair of the House Committee on Education, the late Representative Bam Carney, wisely saw the value of the GED as an opportunity for state agency children, many of whom had endured trauma, poverty, or abuse. He sponsored a bill to offer these students the option of a GED. That bill was passed and became KRS 158.143. With House Bill 194, we are asking you to amend that statute to expand the availability of a GED pathway to a small number of other students who are not state agency children, but may also have experienced trauma, abuse, poverty, or simply a lack of success in the traditional high school program. Again, this program is tailored specifically to students who are at least 17 years old and with no chance of graduating from high school due to a lack of credits. It will allow them to start the process of obtaining a GED without waiting for them to formally be out of high school. House Bill 194 gives these students hope for a successful future where they may have believed there was none. I thank you for considering this legislation, and I urge you to give it your support.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions from any members? Seeing none, do we have a motion? We have a motion by Senator Neal. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Carroll. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens. Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator West. Senator Wilson. Chair Wise.
Aye. By unanimous vote, House Bill 194 passes. Do we have a motion to place this bill on consent from a member? Senator Thomas, we have a motion. We have a second. Senator Southworth, all those in favor of placing 194 on consent, please do so by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations,
Mr.
Representative.
Chairman and members of the committee, thank you very much.
Next up is our last bill on the agenda for today. It's Representative Myron Dawsett, House Bill 397. It's an act relating to disaster days for schools impacted by the Western Kentucky tornadoes and declaring an emergency. Representative, welcome to this committee, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Wise and committee members. And I want to say thank you on behalf of my school districts and counties that were impacted by the tornadoes on December 10th and December 11th and December 12th. House Bill 397 will extend 15 additional emergency and disaster days to our school districts. Of the 7 counties that were impacted by the tornadoes, there were only 3 school districts that will use in excess of 10 days. Graves County, Mayfield Independent, Dawson Springs Independent, and 1 school in the Christian County School District. And this is going to allow those children to be able to get back to a bit of a normal life. But also, on top of that, it will benefit our school staff and employees because their days will count. So many of those volunteered and worked while school was out. And I would like to let Representative Richard Heath please share some of what he saw there in Graves County as well.
Representative, please identify yourself for the record. Proceed.
Thank you. Representative Richard Heath, District 2, which is Graves County, part of McCracken County. And apologize for being late. We were passing Senate bills in the State Government Committee. So I'm sure any of you that came to Western Kentucky after the tornadoes passed through and volunteered and helped, and many of you did, you would notice that our school superintendents, our principals, teachers, students were pitching in and helping volunteer and helping unload donations that were being brought in and helping disperse those donations to people that needed them. So my comment has been, I think our young people got a better education the week they were out of school volunteering than they would have if they'd been in class, and I support this.
Thank you very much. Questions from any members? Seeing none, do we have a motion on the bill? Motion. Second? Second, Senator Neal. Thank you. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator Higdon. Senator Kerr. Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Senator Neal. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas. Senator West.
Explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Proudly vote aye. Just want to make a comment to Chairman. You can really tell the legislators who've been here a long time. Representative Heath, he knows how to work a committee, but I appreciate the bill. Thank you.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Chair Wise.
Aye. By a vote of 10 aye votes, no nay votes, the bill passed. I do want to say thank you both. Thank you to your educators, their staff, superintendents, and everybody back in Western Kentucky that were affected by this. Do we have a motion for consent?
So moved.
We do. We have a motion from, I think, Senator Meredith. I heard also Senator Neal with a second. All those in favor of placing House Bill 397 on consent, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Mr.
you all.
Chair, before we adjourn, I'd like
Please.
to record a vote on House Bill 121. Aye.
We have an aye vote on House Bill 121 by Senator Meredith. Thank you, sir. Seeing no further need, motion for adjournment? Motion. Thank you so much.